They say death reveals the truth. In my case, it revealed 30 years of lies. I died alone in a gilded cage, my hair white as winter frost, my body broken from bearing 8 children I never held. The Grand Chancellor promised me that one day, just one day, I would see their faces. But as I took my final breath in that silent courtyard, surrounded by silk and jade yet utterly empty, I understood the cruelest truth of all. My children knew I existed. They simply didn't want to meet me. The Grand Chancellor stroked my dying hand and whispered, "They said you abandoned them, Visha." What could I do? In that moment, as darkness claimed me, I made a vow to the heavens. If the gods grant me another chance, I will never step foot in the Chancellor's manor again. I will never become the woman locked away, invisible, erased from her own children's lives. And then impossibly I opened my eyes. But I wasn't dead. I was 15 years old again, crouching in the matchmaker's dusty courtyard, exactly where my nightmare began. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments which country you're watching from. And if this is your first time here, don't forget to subscribe. Enjoy listening. The wooden beams above me were exactly as I remembered, cracked in 3 places, with a spider's web in the eastern corner. My hands, when I lifted them to my face, were smooth and unlined. No scars from the difficult births. No rope burns from the times I tried to escape that courtyard prison. I was back. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. The matchmaker's voice drifted from the courtyard, that same wheedling tone that had sold me into servitude 30 years ago. Or rather 30 years from now. Time had folded, and the gods had given me the most precious gift imaginable: knowledge. 10 taels of silver, Master Chun, the matchmaker was saying. The girl is worth every coin. Pretty face, obedient nature, strong hips for bearing children. I peeked around the corner. Master Chun stood with his arms crossed, a merchant by his clothing, simple but well-made robes, a jade ornament at his belt. He was the first visitor. In my previous life, I'd hidden during this conversation, too shy to show my face. He'd haggled down to 6 taels, and the matchmaker had refused. Then he left. And 30 minutes later, the Grand Chancellor's head steward arrived with a purse heavy with gold, and my fate was sealed. Not this time. I stepped into the courtyard, my legs steady despite the trembling in my chest. "Master Chun," I called out, my voice stronger than I felt. "I can read and write. I know herbal medicine. I can manage household accounts, preserve vegetables for winter, and I've helped birth 3 calves and 7 puppies." The matchmaker's eyes widened. In my previous life, I'd been too timid to speak. Now I was desperate. Master Chun studied me with shrewd eyes. "Can you cook?" 15 dishes, and I'm learning more every day. "Can you manage difficult family members?" I thought of the Grand Chancellor's first wife, who'd had me beaten when I smiled at a servant. "I can handle anyone with patience and respect, Master." 6 taels, he said to the matchmaker. 10, she countered. "Look at her initiative. This girl will manage your entire household." They haggled. I stood silently, hands folded, trying to look competent and humble. Every minute that passed was a minute closer to the Grand Chancellor's steward arriving. Finally, Master Chun sighed and pulled out a purse. 8 taels. Final offer. Done. The matchmaker snatched the money before he could reconsider. Relief flooded through me so powerfully I nearly collapsed. The contract was signed in red ink. I was officially the property of Master Chun, merchant of medicinal herbs. As we left the courtyard, I saw him, the Grand Chancellor's steward, his black robes unmistakable, his cruel eyes scanning the space. He called out to the matchmaker, but we were already turning the corner. I pressed close to Master Chen's shadow, making myself as small as possible. Only when we'd walked 3 streets away did I dare to breathe. "You're trembling," Master Chun observed. "Running from someone?" "No, Master. Just grateful." He grunted but didn't press further. We walked through the capital's narrow streets, past tea houses and silk merchants, until we reached a modest home near the eastern wall. It was small but well-maintained, with blue tiles and a red door painted with characters for prosperity. "My wife died 2 years ago," Master Chun said as he unlocked the gate. "I have a daughter, Alara. She's 8 years old and difficult." "I understand, Master." "No, you don't." He turned to face me, and for the first time I saw the exhaustion in his eyes. My wife died giving birth to our son. The baby died too. Alara blames me. She won't speak to me. She refuses to eat unless forced. I've had 3 servants already, and she's driven them all away. In my previous life, I'd borne 8 children and been allowed to keep none of them. Perhaps the gods sent me here for a reason. I'll do my best, Master Chan. He showed me the house, the kitchen with its large wok and clay ovens, the well in the courtyard, the storage rooms filled with medicinal herbs that made the air smell of ginger and star anise. Finally, he brought me to a small door painted red. Alara's room. I'll introduce you tomorrow. Tonight, just settle in. But as he walked away, I heard it, soft crying from behind the red door. The sound of a child trying to muffle her sobs in a pillow. My heart, which I'd thought was callous beyond feeling, cracked open. I knocked gently. Alara? My name is Visha. I'm not here to replace your mother. I'm just here to help. But if you need anything, water or an extra blanket, or just someone to sit with you, I'm in the room across the courtyard. The one with the green door. The crying stopped. I waited, but no response came. That was all right. Trust had to be earned, especially from a grieving child. I settled into my small room. A bed, a table, a wash basin. Through the window, I could see the moon rising over the capital's walls. Somewhere in this city, in a mansion I would never enter again, the Grand Chancellor was preparing for another night with his barren wife. In my previous life's timeline, he would buy me in 3 months, after his wife consulted fortune tellers who declared a surrogate the only solution. 3 months. I had 3 months before destiny tried to drag me back. But I was no longer the naive girl who'd believed in promises. I was a woman who'd survived 30 years in a gilded cage. And this time I would forge my own path, even if I had to fight fate itself. The first week in Master Chen's household taught me that children could be far more dangerous than any cruel master. Alara was a ghost. She appeared at meals only when dragged, ate 3 bites with dead eyes, then vanished back behind her red door. She never spoke, never smiled, never acknowledged my existence except for one incident on the 3rd day. I'd prepared her favorite dumpling soup. Master Chan had mentioned she once loved it. I carried the bowl to her room and knocked gently. Alara, I made something special. The door flew open. The bowl was slapped from my hands with such force the soup splashed across my robe, scalding my skin. Alara's eyes blazed with fury. My mother made that soup. You're not her. You'll never be her. Then she slammed the door so hard the frame rattled. I stood there dripping with soup, my skin stinging from the heat. But I didn't cry. I'd endured far worse in my previous life. A child's anger was at least honest, unlike the Grand Chancellor's false kindness. I cleaned up the mess, changed my robe, and went about my duties. That night, I left a small plate of osmanthus cakes outside her door, her mother's recipe, which Master Chan had written down before her death. In the morning, the plate was empty. It became our routine. I would leave food and she would eat it, but only when I wasn't watching. I never mentioned it. Never pushed. Some wounds needed silence to heal. Master Chen noticed. You're patient with her, he said one evening as we reviewed the household accounts. I'd found several calculation errors and reorganized his inventory system. She's in pain, I replied simply. Pain makes people push others away. He studied me with those shrewd merchant eyes. You speak like someone who understands. I said nothing. How could I explain that I'd spent 30 years in pain, longing to see children who thought I'd abandoned them? On the 10th day, everything changed. I was in the kitchen preparing medicine for Master Chen's chronic cough, a mixture of loquat leaves and Sichuan fritillary bulb, when I heard the crash. I ran to the courtyard and found Alara on the ground, her knee bleeding from a fall. She'd been climbing the persimmon tree and slipped. She looked up at me with defiant eyes, waiting for a scolding. Instead, I knelt beside her. That was a good climb. You almost made it to the 3rd branch. Your mother would be proud. Master Chan told me she was the best tree climber in her village. Alara blinked. A single tear rolled down her cheek. But we should clean this wound, I continued gently. May I? She nodded. Just the tiniest dip of her chin. I carried her to the kitchen, cleaned the scrape with warm water, and applied honey and turmeric paste, better than any expensive ointment. As I worked, I talked softly about nothing important. The weather. The neighbor's new chickens. The merchant who sold the loudest ginger. My mother used honey too, Elara whispered. Her first words to me. Then she was a wise woman. Do you think? She hesitated. Do you think she's watching me? I thought of my own children who I'd never held. I think mothers never really leave. They live in every skill they taught us, every kindness they showed us, every moment they loved us. Your mother is in your brave tree climbing, in your father's smile when he thinks of her, in the way you protect your heart because it was hers first. Elara burst into tears, real heaving sobs. I held her while she cried, this small girl who'd been trying so hard to be strong. When the storm passed, she looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. Can I call you Sister Visha? My heart, already cracked, shattered completely. I would be honored. From that day forward, Elara became my shadow. She followed me through morning chores, asking endless questions. How do you know which herbs are fresh? Why do we hang mushrooms to dry? Can you teach me to read? I taught her everything I knew. In my previous life, I'd been forbidden education. The Grand Chancellor said surrogate mothers needed only to breed. But in the years of isolation, I taught myself by stealing books from the manor's library. Now that knowledge had a purpose. Master Chun watched our growing bond with wonder. I was going to send her to her grandmother, he admitted one night. I thought I was failing her. But you've brought her back to life. She brought herself back, I corrected. She just needed to know it was safe to try. 3 months passed like water flowing downstream. I'd almost forgotten about the Grand Chancellor, almost convinced myself that I'd truly escaped that fate. Master Chen's business flourished under my management. I reorganized his medicinal herb inventory, established new supplier relationships, and even began making special remedy blends that became popular among the capital's wealthy families. Then one morning, Master Chun came home from the market with unusual news. The Grand Chancellor is seeking a surrogate mother, he said, shaking rain from his cloak. His wife remains barren after 15 years of marriage. They're offering 50 taels of silver to the right family, enough to change someone's fortune. My blood turned to ice water. The matchmaker from the Eastern District is handling the selection, he continued, oblivious to my reaction. Half the poor families in the capital are volunteering their daughters. Desperate times breed desperate choices. I forced my voice to remain steady. What kind of life would such a woman have? Master Chun shrugged. Locked in a courtyard, bred like livestock, never to see her own children. But 50 taels could feed a family for years. Some would call it a fair trade. No trade is fair when you sell your humanity. He looked at me sharply. You speak with conviction. I speak with sense. I turned back to grinding herbs, my hands trembling. Such a woman would be a prisoner with extra steps. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept remembering the Grand Chancellor's face as I died, false concern masking complete indifference. I remembered my children's names being called in distant courtyards, laughter I was forbidden to witness. I remembered the weight of silk robes that felt like chains. I thought I escaped, but fate was circling back. At dawn, Elara knocked on my door. Sister Visha? Are you all right? You look sad. I pulled her into a hug. This child who I'd helped heal. This life which I'd built from nothing. I'm fine, little one. Just thinking. About what? About how lucky I am to be here. She squeezed me tight. I'm lucky too. Before you came, everything was dark. Now it's like the sun came back. If the Grand Chancellor thought he could take this from me, this small, precious happiness, he would learn that the woman who'd survived 30 years in his cage was no longer weak. I would fight, not with strength but with strategy, and I would win. The Grand Chancellor's search for a surrogate dominated capital gossip for weeks. Tea houses buzzed with speculation. Which family would sell their daughter for 50 taels? Which girl was suitable for bearing a nobleman's heir? I heard the whispers everywhere. At the market, at the temple, even from the neighbors who didn't know my history or my future. I heard he wants someone young and healthy, one merchant wife said, with good hips. My cousin's daughter is perfect, another chimed in. 16 years old, strong as an ox. They spoke of it like auctioning livestock. No one mentioned the girl's feelings, her dreams, her humanity. 50 taels made everything acceptable. Master Chen discussed it too, though with more compassion. The Chancellor's a cold man, he said one evening. Rich beyond measure but hollow inside. His first wife is said to be jealous and cruel. Any girl entering that household will suffer. Then why allow it? I asked, perhaps too sharply. Because the law protects noblemen's rights above all else. A chancellor can do as he pleases, and the emperor will turn a blind eye unless it threatens the court's stability. He sighed. This is why I teach Alara to read and calculate. Education is the only protection a woman has in this world. I treasured him more for that philosophy. In my previous life, the Grand Chancellor had forbidden me everything. Books, visitors, even sunlight some days. Master Chen gave Alara the tools to survive. But tools couldn't protect against a determined predator. 2 months after I'd escaped my original fate, the matchmaker came to Master Chen's door. I was in the kitchen when I heard her voice, that oily, persuasive tone that made my skin crawl. Through the window, I watched her gesture dramatically in the courtyard. Master Chen, I have a proposal that could change your fortune. The Grand Chancellor himself sent me to scout for suitable women, and your servant girl Visha meets every requirement perfectly. She's young, healthy, obedient, and I checked the records. You purchased her for only 8 taels. The Chancellor offers 50. You'd profit 42 taels from a single transaction. Master Chen's face remained impassive. Visha is not for sale. But Master Chen, be reasonable. What is she to you? A servant. But to the Chancellor, she's an opportunity for an heir. Think of the connections. The Chancellor's favor could elevate your entire business. He might even grant you exclusive contracts for supplying the noble houses. I said no. The matchmaker's smile hardened. I understand your hesitation, but consider this. The Chancellor always gets what he wants. If you refuse to negotiate, he might take offense. And an offended Chancellor can make life very difficult for a small merchant. It was a threat wrapped in silk. Master Chen stood. Tell the Grand Chancellor that Visha is a member of my household, not merchandise. If he takes offense at basic human decency, then his character is worse than rumored. Good day. He closed the door in her face. I sagged against the kitchen wall, relief and terror mixing in equal measure. Master Chen had protected me. But the matchmaker was right about one thing. The Chancellor always got what he wanted. That night, Alara found me pacing in my room. Sister Visha, why are you scared? I heard that horrible woman talking. But father sent her away. You're safe. I knelt to her level. Alara, if something happens, if I have to go away, I need you to promise me something. Her eyes widened. You're not leaving. Just promise me. Keep learning. Keep reading. Never let anyone tell you that you're less important because you're a girl. Your worth isn't measured by who you marry or how many children you bear. It's measured by your kindness, your intelligence, your strength. Promise me you'll remember that. She threw her arms around my neck. I promise. But you're not leaving. Father won't let anyone take you. I held her tight, smelling the persimmon flower soap in her hair. Your father is a good man. But sometimes good men can't stop powerful ones. Then we'll fight, she declared with childish conviction. We'll lock all the doors and throw vegetables at anyone who tries to take you. Despite everything, I laughed. That's a plan. But I knew vegetables wouldn't stop the Grand Chancellor. 3 days later, his head steward arrived with a formal proclamation. Master Chen was requested to appear at the Chancellor's manor for a business discussion. The invitation was written on expensive paper with the Chancellor's personal seal, impossible to refuse without severe consequences. Master Chen went, his face grim. I waited at home with Alara, both of us pretending to do chores while actually hovering near the door. He returned after sunset, his expression unreadable. Sister Visha, Alara whispered. Father looks angry. He did. But it was a cold, calculating anger, the kind merchants developed when negotiating against corrupt officials. Visha, he called. Come. We need to talk. In his study, he poured 2 cups of tea with shaking hands. The Chancellor made his intentions clear. He wants you as his surrogate. He's willing to pay 100 taels, double his original offer. My stomach dropped. Master Chen, I I refused, he interrupted. But he's a persistent man. He investigated my business and found several irregularities in my tax records. Irregularities that don't exist, mind you, but with the right pressure they could be made to appear. He's threatening to destroy everything I've built unless I cooperate. Then sell me, I said quietly. Don't let him ruin you for my sake. Master Chan slammed his cup down. Absolutely not. What kind of man would I be? You've transformed my household, brought my daughter back to life, and quintupled my business profits. More than that, you're a person, not property. I will not trade your life for money, no matter the amount. But your business can be rebuilt. Visha, listen to me. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. I lost my wife to childbirth. I nearly lost my daughter to grief. I will not lose another woman to some nobleman's cruelty. We'll find another way. There is no other way, I said softly. In 3 months, he'll manufacture enough evidence to have you arrested. He'll seize your assets, claim I was stolen property, and take me anyway. He always wins, Master Chan. Always. How do you know this? Because I'd lived it. Because I'd seen him destroy families on a whim. Because I knew exactly how ruthless the Grand Chancellor could be. But I couldn't say that. I just know, I whispered. Master Chan studied me for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled. Not a happy smile, but a merchant's smile. The smile of someone who just found an angle. Then we'll make sure he doesn't win this time. I have an idea, but it's risky. It requires you to trust me completely. I do. Good. Because we're going to need help from someone I hope to never contact again. He pulled out a piece of paper and began writing. My younger brother is a captain in the Imperial Guard. We haven't spoken in 5 years. Family disagreements about inheritance. But he owes me a significant debt, and more importantly, he hates corrupt officials. Hope flickered in my chest. You think he'll help? He'll help. But Visha. Master Chen's expression grew serious. If we do this, there's no going back. We'll be making an enemy of one of the most powerful men in the capital. Your life will never be simple again. I thought of the alternative, 30 more years in that courtyard. Children I'd never hold. A living death dressed in silk. Simple is overrated, I said. Let's make an enemy. Master Chen's brother arrived 3 days later at midnight, dressed in the dark blue uniform of the Imperial Guard. Captain Marcus Chan was everything his brother wasn't. Tall where Master Chan was average, muscular where his brother was lean, with a scar across his left eyebrow that suggested a violent past. He also radiated authority. Older brother, he said, his voice formal. Your message said it was urgent. Master Chan gestured to me. This is Visha. The Grand Chancellor wants to force her into surrogacy. He's threatened to destroy my business and fabricate criminal charges unless I comply. Marcus's expression darkened. Is this true? I nodded, keeping my eyes respectfully lowered. Yes, Captain. I don't want to go. Why you specifically? There are thousands of young women in the capital. How could I explain? Because in my previous life, I'd already borne him 8 children? Because fate was trying to correct itself and I was the keystone? I don't know, I lied. But his steward said the Chancellor had seen me and was fixated. It wasn't entirely untrue. In my previous life, the Grand Chancellor had indeed fixated on me, not out of affection, but because I produced healthy children consistently. Marcus began pacing. The Chancellor is protected by the Ministry of Rights and has the Emperor's favor. Accusing him without evidence would destroy my career and endanger both of you. I'm not asking you to accuse him, Master Chan said. I'm asking you to help us create a situation where his behavior becomes public knowledge. The court doesn't tolerate scandal, even from a chancellor. You want me to expose him? Marcus shook his head. That's even more dangerous. Is it? Master Chan pulled out a ledger. For the past month, I've been tracking the Chancellor's movements. He's visited the Eastern District Matchmaker 7 times, personally inspecting over 30 young women. He's offered bribes totaling over 300 taels. He's threatened 5 different families. This isn't normal behavior for finding a surrogate. This is obsession. Marcus took the ledger, his expression growing more troubled with each page. Where did you get this information? I have merchant contacts throughout the capital. Information is currency in our profession. If the court ladies knew about this, Marcus murmured. The chancellor's wife would be humiliated. She has powerful family connections in the Ministry of Personnel. They could apply pressure. Exactly, Master Chun said. We don't need to destroy the chancellor. We just need to make Visha too scandalous to pursue. If the court knows he's obsessed with a particular servant girl, enough to threaten merchants and bribe matchmakers, his wife's family will demand he stop or face social consequences. It was a clever plan. The court ran on appearances and propriety. A chancellor quietly taking a surrogate was acceptable. A chancellor publicly lusting after a specific servant girl was scandalous. But Marcus still looked uncertain. How do you spread this information without getting traced back to you? That's why I need you. The Imperial Guard hears everything. If you casually mention this situation to a few strategic people, perhaps a gossipy court scribe, a minister's wife, a tea house owner who serves officials, the story will spread like wildfire. No one will know the source. Marcus studied his brother. You've become more cunning since last we spoke. I've become more desperate. Will you help us? The captain turned to me. Young woman, if we do this, you'll become infamous. The whole capital will know your name and story. Some will pity you. Others will judge you. Is this what you want? I thought of Alara who needed me. Of Master Chan who'd protected me. Of the life I'd built that was finally mine. I want my freedom, I said clearly. Whatever the cost. Marcus nodded slowly. Then we have an agreement. Give me 5 days. He left us silently as he'd arrived. The waiting was torture. I went through my routines. Cooking, managing inventory, teaching Alara, but my mind churned with possibilities. What if the plan failed? What if it made things worse? On the 3rd day, Alara noticed my distraction. Sister Visha, you keep dropping things. Yesterday it was the rice bowl. Today it's the sewing needles. Tomorrow you might drop me. She was trying to make me laugh. I appreciated the effort. I'm sorry, little one. I'm just worried. About the bad chancellor? I tried to keep her innocent of the situation, but Alara was sharp. Yes. Uncle Marcus will protect you, she said with certainty. He's a hero. He once fought off 10 bandits all by himself. I think that story might be exaggerated. Well, maybe it was 8 bandits. But still. He's very brave. Her faith was touching if naive. But children saw the world in simple terms. Good versus evil, heroes versus villains. Reality was messier. On the 5th day, Marcus returned with news. It's done, he said, looking exhausted. I planted the story with 3 court scribes, 2 ministers' wives, and the owner of the capital's most popular tea house. By this afternoon, the entire capital will know about the Grand Chancellor's inappropriate fixation on a servant girl. His wife's family has already heard. I made sure of that. And? Master Chun asked anxiously. The Chancellor has been summoned by his father-in-law for a private discussion. That's court language for a severe reprimand. He'll be forced to abandon his pursuit or face scandal that could cost him political alliances. Relief flooded through me so intensely I had to sit down. It's over. For now, Marcus cautioned. But Visha, you should understand, the Chancellor isn't a man who forgives easily. He'll remember this. If he ever gets an opportunity for revenge, he'll take it. Then I'll make sure he never gets that opportunity. Marcus studied me with newfound respect. You're stronger than you look, aren't you? I've survived worse than a petty chancellor, I said without thinking. Both brothers stared at me, surprised by the steel in my voice. I quickly softened my expression. I mean, I can endure. Thank you, Captain Marcus. You've saved my life. Thank my idiot brother, Marcus said, but he was smiling. He was very persuasive. And I suppose I owed him for the inheritance dispute. You took Mother's jade collection without permission, Master Chun grumbled. You got the entire house, which I deserved as the eldest son. I left them to their bickering, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The immediate threat had passed. But Marcus's warning echoed in my mind. The Chancellor would remember. That night I couldn't sleep. I stood in the courtyard under the stars, breathing in the scent of night-blooming jasmine. In my previous life, I'd spent countless nights staring at these same stars from a different courtyard, dreaming of freedom. Now I had it. But freedom came with its own burdens. Sister Visha? Ilara appeared in her nightclothes, looking small and worried. I had a nightmare. Can I stay with you? Of course. I gathered her into my arms. What did you dream about? That you disappeared. And the house was empty and cold again. I held her tighter. I'm not going anywhere. I promise. It was a promise I intended to keep, even if fate itself tried to break it. For 6 months life was peaceful. Master Chen's business thrived. Ironically, the scandal had made us somewhat famous. People were curious about the servant girl the Chancellor obsessed over, and they came to buy herbs just to catch a glimpse of me. I hated the attention but appreciated the income it generated. Ilara continued to flourish. She could now read basic texts, write simple characters, and calculate household budgets. Master Chan joked that she was already smarter than most merchants' sons. Captain Marcus visited occasionally, and I noticed his eyes lingering on me longer than necessary. But I pretended not to notice. Romance wasn't something I could afford. Not when I was still running from my previous life's shadow. Then one winter morning, everything shattered. Master Chan came home from the market ashen-faced. The Grand Chancellor has been promoted, he said quietly. The Emperor appointed him to the Ministry of Justice. He now has authority over criminal prosecutions throughout the capital. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. He's consolidating power, Marcus said when he arrived that evening. He'd come immediately after hearing the news. This promotion means he can manufacture charges against anyone who opposed him, and there's little recourse. He's coming for us, isn't he? I asked. Eventually. But not immediately, he's too smart for that. He'll wait until you're vulnerable, until you've relaxed. Then he'll strike. So what do we do? Master Chan and Marcus exchanged glances. Then Master Chan spoke carefully. There's one option that would make you completely untouchable. What? Marriage to an Imperial Guard captain would put you under the military's jurisdiction, not civilian law. The Chancellor would need special authorization to pursue any charges against you, and that's difficult to obtain without substantial evidence. I looked at Marcus. He was staring intently at his teacup. Are you suggesting? I couldn't finish the sentence. I'm suggesting a practical arrangement, Marcus said formally. You need protection. I need. Well, my mother has been pressuring me to marry for 3 years. This would solve both our problems. It was the least romantic proposal imaginable, which somehow made it more honest. But you don't even know me, I protested. I know you're clever, capable, and loyal. You've transformed my brother's household and raised his daughter. These are qualities I value. But what about love? Marcus finally met my eyes. Love is a luxury for poets and farmers. We're practical people living in dangerous times. I'm offering safety, not romance. If affection develops later, that's a bonus. If not, we'll have a respectful partnership. Master Chan cleared his throat. Visha, I want to be clear, this is entirely your choice. I'll protect you however I can, regardless of your decision. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. In my previous life, I'd married for security and been imprisoned. Now I was being offered another marriage for security, but with a man who'd already proven his willingness to protect me. A man who valued cleverness over fertility, capability over beauty, and most importantly, a man who was offering partnership, not ownership. I accept, I said. Marcus looked relieved. Then we'll marry next month. I'll make the arrangements. The wedding was simple. A small ceremony at the family temple with just Master Chan, Ilara, and a few of Marcus's guard colleagues as witnesses. I wore borrowed blue robes. Marcus wore his uniform. We bowed to heaven and earth, then to each other. Ilara cried happy tears. Now you're really my sister. Well, my aunt. But that's even better. The marriage was recorded in the official registers. I was now Visha Chan, wife of Captain Marcus Chan of the Imperial Guard. Protected by military jurisdiction. Untouchable. Or so I thought. 3 months after the wedding, Marcus came home with disturbing news. The Chancellor has been investigating me, he said quietly. Someone's been asking questions about my finances, my assignments, my personal life. They're looking for something to use against me. Can they find anything? No. I'm careful. But Visha. He hesitated. They've also been asking about you. About where you came from. Who you were before Master Chan bought you. My blood froze. What did they find? Nothing yet. The matchmaker's records are vague. Just your age and place of origin. But if they dig deeper, if they find your family. I have no family, I said quickly. Too quickly. Marcus noticed. Visha, if there's something in your past that could be used against you, I need to know. I can't protect you from secrets. How could I explain? That I'd lived an entire lifetime already? That I'd borne the Chancellor's children and died in his courtyard? That I was living in my own past with future knowledge? I couldn't. It sounded like madness. There's nothing, I lied. I was sold by a poor farming family. They're probably dead by now. There's nothing to find. But I was wrong. 2 weeks later, the Chancellor's men found my father. He was still alive, still living in the same village where I'd grown up. And he had a very interesting story to tell. How his daughter had been sold to a matchmaker for 10 taels. How he'd expected her to work in a noble household. How he'd never heard from her again. The Chancellor twisted this information beautifully. He filed a formal complaint claiming that I had been illegally trafficked, that my original sale contract was fraudulent, and that as the official who had attempted to rescue me, he had legal obligation to investigate. It was a brilliant legal maneuver. By positioning himself as my protector rather than my pursuer, he gained the moral high ground. And by questioning the validity of my original sale, he called into question Master Chen's ownership and by extension my marriage to Marcus. If my marriage wasn't legal, I wasn't protected by military jurisdiction. We fought back through every legal channel. Marcus hired the best lawyers. Master Chan provided documentation. I gave testimony to 3 different magistrates. But the Chancellor had the Ministry of Justice behind him. Slowly, methodically, he dismantled our defenses. The verdict came 6 months after he'd begun his investigation. My original sale contract was declared fraudulent due to irregularities in the matchmaker's licensing. Therefore, Master Chen's ownership was invalid. Therefore, my marriage to Marcus was invalid. I was legally classified as unclaimed property of the state, to be disposed of as the courts saw fit. And who controlled the courts? The Grand Chancellor himself. On the day they came to take me, Ilara screamed and clung to my robes. Master Chan argued until he was hoarse. Marcus stood between me and the Chancellor's guards, his hand on his sword. I'll kill every man who tries to take her, he said coldly. The Chancellor's head steward smiled. Then you'll be executed for assaulting government officials, and your wife will be taken anyway. Is that what you want, Captain? Marcus's hand trembled on his sword. We both knew he was beaten. I placed my hand over his. Don't. I'll go. Visha. Protect Ilara, I whispered. That's more important. I kissed his cheek, then turned to Master Chan. Thank you for everything. Teach Ilara well. Make sure she's strong. Then I walked to the Chancellor's guards and extended my hands for the shackles. They weren't necessary, I'd go willingly. But the Chancellor wanted the symbolism. Wanted Marcus and Master Chan to watch helplessly as I was bound and led away like a criminal. As the cart rolled through the capital streets toward the Chancellor's manor, I stared up at the sky. Gray clouds gathered overhead, promising rain. I tried so hard to escape this fate. I changed my choices, fought against destiny, built a different life. But somehow I was heading to the same place I'd started. That courtyard where I would be imprisoned, where I would bear children I'd never hold, where I would die alone and forgotten. Fate, it seemed, was inescapable. But as the first raindrops began to fall, I remembered something important. I wasn't the same Visha who'd gone to this manor 30 years ago. That Visha had been naive, hopeful, weak. I was different now. I had knowledge. I had allies. I had anger. And most importantly, I had nothing left to lose. If the Chancellor thought he'd won, he was about to learn a very painful lesson. You can cage a woman once, but cage her twice and she learns how to pick the locks. The courtyard was exactly as I remembered. Same stone walls, same plum tree in the corner, same small building with red painted shutters. The sight of it made my stomach turn. In my previous life, I'd spent 30 years staring at these walls until they became my entire world. Not this time. The Chancellor appeared as the guards removed my shackles. He looked older than I remembered, touches of gray at his temples, deeper lines around his mouth. But his eyes held the same calculating coldness. Visha, he said softly. Welcome home. This isn't my home. It will be. He gestured to the small building. You'll be comfortable here. My physician will examine you tomorrow to confirm your health. Then we'll begin. Begin what? Treating me like livestock. His expression didn't change. I prefer to think of it as a mutually beneficial arrangement. You'll bear my children. In exchange, you'll live in comfort, want for nothing. I'll never see them. That's the arrangement, yes. It's better for everyone if the children don't form attachments to their birth mother. Less complicated. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. Even knowing what he was, hearing him say it so plainly was shocking. What if I refuse? Then you'll be charged with theft of government property yourself, and imprisoned. You'll still live in isolation, but in far worse conditions. And Captain Marcus will be investigated for conspiracy. His career will be destroyed, possibly his life. Is that what you want? He had me trapped. Again. I lifted my chin. Do what you will. But you'll never break me. The Chancellor actually smiled. We'll see. He left me alone in the courtyard that would be my prison. I stood there for a long moment, breathing slowly, fighting down panic. Then I began to explore, looking for any weakness, any opportunity. The walls were smooth stone, 12 feet high. One locked gate. The small building had 3 rooms but no tools, no weapons. That first night I barely slept. I kept thinking of Marcus and Alara, wondering if they were all right. At dawn the physician arrived. An old woman with cold hands who examined me and declared me suitable. But before the Chancellor could return that evening, something unexpected happened. I was sitting in the courtyard when I heard unusual sounds from beyond the walls, shouting, the clash of metal. Then an explosion that shook the ground. Smoke began rising from somewhere in the manor. The gate burst open. Marcus stood there in full armor, sword drawn, covered in soot and blood. Behind him were a dozen Imperial guards. Visha. He ran to me, checking for injuries. Are you hurt? Did he touch you? No, I just arrived yesterday. What's happening? Rescue. He pulled me toward the gate. We need to move. Now. As we ran through the manor's corridors, Marcus explained rapidly. My brother went directly to the Emperor with evidence of the Chancellor's crimes, not just against you, but a dozen other women over the years. The Emperor was furious. Issued an immediate arrest warrant. We stormed the manor an hour ago. We burst into the main courtyard where chaos reigned. The Chancellor's guards had surrendered. The man himself was on his knees, hands bound, surrounded by Imperial guards. His face was ashen with disbelief. When he saw me, his expression twisted with rage. You! This is your doing. No, said a commanding voice. The Emperor's chief minister stepped forward, holding an official decree. This is your doing, Chancellor. Or should I say former Chancellor. You've been stripped of all titles and authority. You're under arrest for human trafficking, false imprisonment, and abuse of power. The Chancellor's face went from red to white. This is a mistake. I have rights. You have nothing, the minister said coldly. You'll be tried, convicted, and exiled. Your victims will receive compensation from your seized assets. Your name will be erased from the honor rolls. You are finished. As the guards dragged him away, the Chancellor's eyes locked on mine one last time. I saw fear there, real fear. The powerful man who'd controlled my fate was now powerless himself. Marcus wrapped his arms around me. It's over. It's really over. I sagged against him, hardly daring to believe it. How? How did you manage this so quickly? My brother had been building a case for months, even before you were taken. He interviewed every family the Chancellor had victimized, gathered medical evidence, collected testimonies. When you were captured, he had enough to go to the Emperor immediately. The Emperor sent us the moment he signed the warrant. So I was only here one day. One day too many, Marcus said fiercely. But at least it's the last day you'll ever spend in any cage. The trial was swift and public. The emperor wanted to make an example of the chancellor's crimes. 12 women testified about being imprisoned and forced into surrogacy. Medical records proved systematic abuse. Financial documents showed bribes and falsified legal proceedings. The evidence was overwhelming. The chancellor was convicted on all counts. His sentence: exiled to a labor camp in the western desert for the remainder of his life. His fortune was divided among his victims. His title and honors were revoked. His family name was stricken from official records. His first wife divorced him before the trial ended, taking her powerful family connections and leaving him completely alone. I attended the sentencing. When the chancellor was led past in chains, he looked at me with hollow eyes. "I would have given you everything," he whispered. "You would have given me a cage," I replied. "I chose freedom instead." That was the last time I ever saw him. Marcus was cleared of all charges and reinstated with honors. The emperor personally apologized for the legal system's failures and promoted Marcus to commander of the Northern Guard. We had a choice: stay in the capital with Marcus's new position, or accept the northern posting we'd originally planned. "What do you want?" Marcus asked. I thought about the capital's politics, its dangers, its memories. Then I thought about clean mountain air and quiet valleys, and a life where we controlled our own fate. "North," I said. "Let's go north." So we did. We built our home in the mountains, surrounded by forests and streams. Marcus commanded a small but respected garrison. I became the unofficial physician for the military families, teaching medicine and helping deliver babies. Ilara visited often, now studying to become a scholar. Master Chun retired and moved into a cottage near our home. Even Marcus's brother visited occasionally, always bringing news from the capital. We had 4 children: Adrian, Lydia, and twin boys Nathan and Samuel. They grew up free and wild, learning to ride and read and think for themselves. Years passed. The chancellor became a distant memory, a nightmare that had ended. One evening, 20 years after my escape from his manor, I stood watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. Marcus found me there, gray-haired but still strong. "Thinking about the past?" he asked. "Thinking about how grateful I am for the present." I took his hand. "In my first life, I died alone in a cage, having borne 8 children I never knew. In this life, I'm free with 4 children I've raised and loved. That's the difference second chances make. Do you ever regret it? The ones who were never born." I considered honestly. I regret that the first version of me suffered. But those children grew up believing their mother abandoned them, raised by a cruel man. In this timeline, they never existed, but they also never suffered. This is better. Marcus pulled me close. "You broke fate itself, Visha. Twice." "We broke it," I corrected. "I couldn't have done it alone." As the sun set behind the mountains, I thought about the girl I'd been at 15, frightened, powerless, about to be sold into servitude. And I thought about the woman I'd become, strong enough to fight destiny, to escape twice, to build a life worth living. The chancellor had wanted to cage me forever. Instead, I'd flown free and built my own empire, not of power or wealth, but of love and choice and freedom. And that was the greatest victory of all. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories every day. Thanks for watching.